You've not only said controversial things, but you've had a couple of attacks against the trans community, transphobic attack. But even with that, do you feel that a lot of your speech could incite the same kind of violence?
I mean, you heard my speech tonight. Do you feel that my speech could incite violence?
Well,
That people can move from male to female, and that it is my job, objectively, to now call them the name they wish to be called, and to teach my children that men can be women and women can be men. I fundamentally disagree with that point. Now, with that said, so if the idea is that if I say a man is a man and a woman is inherently transphobic, that's not discrimination, that's disagreement. If they say that's discrimination, they're overly applying their own label.
Well, I think when you say like they're mentally ill, like that gives off.
I have said, and I will continue to maintain, that gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder, whichever DSM you choose to use, is a mental illness. That is.
私の意見に反対するのなら差別とみなします。こんにちは皆さん、エリタです。今回の動画なんですけど、ユダヤ系保守派活動家ベン・シャピロとトランスジェンダー権利活動家の学生の討論の様子ですね。トランスの意見に反対するやつはトランス恐怖症とみなし差別ですというとんでも理論は必見です。最近このチャンネルの収益化がバンされてしまい、チャンネル自体のバンの可能性も出てきましたので、サブチャンネルのチェックの方お願いします。では頑張って翻訳しましたので一緒に見ていきましょう。ではどうぞ。
So you've come out against the rioters in Charlottesville and all their violence and bigotry.
Yep.
The leaders of the Charlottesville rally were empowered by the rhetoric and agenda of Donald Trump and a lot of his associates as they've come out in the Vice documentary and claimed. You've not only said controversial things, but you've had a couple of attacks against the trans community, transphobic attacks, even your call for the transfer of Palestinians, which I don't know if you've redacted that.
Yeah, I redacted that like 8-9 years ago.
I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to ask you. No, I'm just learning about Ben.
No, really, that's fine.
Here.
That's fine.
But even with that, do you feel that a lot of your speech could incite the same kind of violence?
I mean, you heard my speech tonight. Do you feel that my speech could incite violence?
Well,
I mean that seriously. That's an honest question.
I know you're asking honestly. I feel that for me, as an individual, it isn't, but I could see how a lot of your points I really disagreed with. I literally have a list of
that's fine. I mean, that's the good part, right? Where we disagree and we can have a conversation.
I just was wondering in terms of, and what I mean by inciting violence is encouraging the same people who believe in like your transphobic beliefs, even that like homophobia is a sin based on your religious beliefs. Do you believe that because of what you say, you can encourage a lot of people to act on those beliefs?
So I have a very strong standard with regard to incitement, and I'm very consistent about this. If I'm not telling somebody to commit violence, I'm not inciting them to violence. I've held the standard for Barack Obama when he was saying anti-police things, and then somebody went and shot up some police officers in Dallas. I said that's not Barack Obama's fault. When a Bernie Sanders supporter went and shot up a congressional baseball game, I said that's not Bernie Sanders' fault because Bernie Sanders wasn't calling for that. Political debate requires that you talk to people, and people take your words as what they mean, not as an excuse to go and do violence. I've never called for violence, nor would I. As far as the idea that my words are some sort of attack, a violent attack, for example, on folks who are transgender, my view.
I'm not saying
I know, but I'm responding to the people who are not you who might say that. Okay. So the idea that I am transphobic, for example, this is a bizarre kind of attack in the sense that I don't know that I've ever exhibited phobia of trans people. I'm not afraid of trans people.
Well, transphobia is more along the lines of prejudice against the trans.
So I actually think that your first characterization was right. I think that transphobia is really disagreement with the basic principle that the trans community is trying to purvey, which is that people's sex is malleable, that people can move from male to female, and that it is my job, objectively, to now call them the name they wish to be called, and to teach my children that men can be women and women can be men. I fundamentally disagree with that point. Now, with that said, is everybody in the United States entitled to the same rights? Of course, but your right does not extend to forcing me to call you what you want me to call you. That's not the way this works. That violates my freedom of speech. So in interpersonal relationships, if I were out to dinner with a trans person, would I make a point of noting their proper biological sex? No, because that would be impolite. When I'm talking about the general principle of is a man a woman or is a woman a man, the answer is I will say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman and a he is a he and a she is a she. And if I'm in a public debate with somebody, I will say the same thing. As far...
I do want to clarify that when I meant I wasn't trying to say disagreement. I was relating it to the same definition of homophobia, which is prejudice, or I tried to say discrimination.
Right. So I think that again, homophobia. There are some people who actively want to do violence to people who are gay. Right. I mean, those people are not me or anybody that I agree with. Obviously, I've never at any point in my entire career ever advocated violence. God forbid, against anybody in a civilized society. That's not something that I believe in, and I think it's evil. As far as I think again. Your original definition of transphobia actually is better applied here as well. I think it's disagreement with certain principles that the homosexual community wishes to espouse.
What I was saying was that's not what I was. I was instead
I know,
of saying
I'm saying that I agree with your original definition and not your definition. So the definition that you made.
No, I'm not saying it's mine. It's one that I Googled that I found.
Right. So, and I think that definition is wrong, and I think that the one that you Freudian slipped was right. So
I'm saying based on even though you're disagreeing with transphobia, with the trans community, which I believe we all have our own disagreements, I'm asking, do you feel that the fact that with your disagreement, you're inherently, through the institutions that have provided these definitions, discriminating against trans community?
And I'm saying
encouraging other people
right.
to follow.
So
I know
here's
it's a long
what,
question, but
right.
I had to
That's
encapsulate a lot of
so
things.
Here's what I'm saying. I disagree with either their definition is wrong or it's overly broad in its application.
Okay.
So if the idea is that if I say a man is a man and a woman is a woman is inherently transphobic, that's not discrimination, that's disagreement. If they say that's discrimination, they're overly applying their own label.
I think when you say they're mentally ill, that gives off.
I have said, and I will continue to maintain, that gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder, whichever DSM you choose to use, is a mental illness. That is, and again, God forbid that it should be said with any animus, because this is not said with animus. When people are suffering, these are clearly folks who are suffering. When people are suffering, you shouldn't be saying stuff with animus. I'm not saying that as a gotcha to people who are transgender. The point that I'm making is that when a society begins treating folks who have mental illness as though they are representing an objective reality, they are doing no service to the people who actually suffer from a mental illness. My grandfather suffered from schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia. He was institutionalized. If the doctors had said to him, Nate, you're fine. We believe that the radio is actually talking to you. That is not a service to him. That would have been terrible for him. Right? They put him in an institution, they gave him lithium, and it helped. Now, I'm not saying there's even a great solution for folks who have gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria, because the solutions that I've seen, including transgender surgery, are not intensely effective from all the studies that I've seen. It's a tragic, tragic situation. But the solution is not to redefine as a society what sex means along anti-biological lines. As far as the homophobia point, it's my own religious belief about the sinful nature of particular people's behavior should have no impact on how you act in a free country or how you think. It's a free country. Do what the hell you want. So when people say homophobia, I think what they are doing is saying you disagree with me. I've never called for violence, and not only that, I'm in favor of legalization of same-sex marriage in the sense I want the government completely out of marriage, right? I don't want the government in the marriage business at all. So it's very... So I think that what bothers me is when folks assume that a disagreement means that they can ascribe animus, anger, hatred, wish for violence to me.
Which is what a lot of the Charlottesville rioters were doing.
Well, the Charlottesville rioters were garbage people. I mean, I did 2 full episodes on how garbage the Charlottesville rioters were.
I mean, this has been really great, actually, to have this dialogue. But I think
I was the #1 target of the alt-right in 2016, according to the Anti-Defamation League.
I looked you up. I know. But what I I'm sorry, I don't mean to be sassy, but what I really wanted to understand was, because you have such a large platform, I mean, even through Twitter, through social media, through your website, through your just all your work, do you not claim? I don't know of any particular cases where someone has said, Ben Shapiro told me to literally go murder a trans person, or someone who...
And if they did, they would be lying.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to ask you about...
Right, and if they did, they would be lying, and I would think that, and again, anybody who commits acts of violence or evil in my name is a violent, evil person. Okay. And I hold that standard for everyone. But I really appreciate you coming out. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
いや、皆さんどうでしたか？トランスフォビア恐怖症の定義は実に興味深いものでしたね。彼女の定義によると、 トランスジェンダーが言うことに反対するイコールトランスジェンダー差別ということになるということでしたが、ベン・シャピロはユダヤ教の教えによりトランスジェンダーの原則に反対しているので、彼女はベンフォビア恐怖症っていうことになるんですかね。ベンは宗教観を他人には押し付けていないのですが、彼らはそれを社会全体に押し付けておいて、それに反対するのは差別者だなんて勝手が過ぎませんかね。悪意はないにしろ、性同一障害イコール精神疾患だとはっきり言い切っていたところは、さすが最も標的にされた男の名に負けない言動でしたね。しかし彼は建設的であり、過激にも毎回理論が通っている討論を展開しているので、全く彼に賛同しない人たちからも注目される理由が伺えましたよね。意見に反対されたからといって即座に差別を訴えず、それぞれの人権を尊重しながら話し合っていける場をこれからの時代設けていくことがとても大切なんじゃないかなって思いますね。では現地の声いくつか紹介していきますね。She was so sweet and respectful. She actually asked questions and wanted to clear things up. This is what a debate should look like. It is wrong to consider homosexuality and transgender together. I've never met a gay man who supports castration of males, and I've never met a lesbian woman that supports removing the breasts of females and hormones to make females into males. Ben talks way too fast. Why is it that when somebody asks they do not agree with an opinion, that they're immediately labeled as some kind of phobia? They do not hate or fear anybody. They just have a different point of view. For this, they're attacked, insulted, called names, and shouted down by hate-filled intolerant others. An intelligent conversation about what's going on in the world. 今回の頼むぜポイントは83点ですね。いや、さっぱり頼むぜ。皆さんの点数とコメントも教えてくださいね。冒頭に今言いましたけど、こういったポリコレの話題に触れてるからか、このチャンネルの収益がバーンされてしまいました。チャンネルバンも十分にありえますので、サブチャンネルのチェック概要欄からよろしくお願いします。このチャンネル頼むぜアメリカでは、こういったマジかよっていう欧米ニュースを楽しく取り扱ってます。チャンネル登録していただけるととっても喜びますんで、よろしくお願いします。では良い一日を。